Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Creative Cranium. I've got some great guests tonight, and I can't wait to talk to them. Welcome, fellas.
Hi.
I think to start out, since there's four of us, why don't we go around the room and we'll introduce ourselves, and please tell us the project that you're most known for and what you're promoting. We'll start with you, Phil.
Phil Russert, and I own Philbo Publishing, Philbo Entertainment Promotions with Philbo Publishing as a subsidiary, and my flagship title is Tragedy, and it's live right now.
That one looks great. We're going to be talking about that in a couple minutes. Kyler, why don't you go next?
I'm Kyler Merrill. I'm the founder of Foreign Press Comics. One of our biggest books has been Fletcher Cross, which was on Kickstarter last year. And right now I'm here to talk about Comics from the Kitchen, which is on Zoop right now.
Excellent. Definitely looking forward to hearing about that. And Eric, hey, we're just meeting for the first time. Nice to meet you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're making.
My name is Eric Terra-Mullins, and I write, illustrate, letter, self-publish, and do all the marketing for a manga comic called Blythe.
Nice.
I've been working on it for 9 years, but usually I do like the convention circuits and things like that. I like up in the Great North. I live in Canada. And recently I've met a couple people online. They're like, you should start doing Kickstarters. So that's what I'm starting to do.
Sure. Well, welcome, guys. And I think I'd like to say first, we got a very diverse selection of products. I've been following a little bit of each of your products, and I think that they're very, very solid. And what we want to talk about tonight and potentially learn about is what is the most effective use of social media. For those of you who don't know, my name's Timothy B. Fling. I'm a writer from York, Pennsylvania. I'm mostly known for the Water Wars series, and I got a new cryptid book that did pretty well on Kickstarter. But really, this show's not about me, so I'm going to jump over to Phil and start asking questions. Phil, I'd want to ask you, you had a great broadcast the other day, and we were talking about some of the pitfalls of social media. And what I mean by that, we have a tendency to fall into this trap where it's difficult to tell who is receiving our marketing that we're sending out. I'd like to start by talking about Facebook. That's the 90-pound, 900-pound gorilla, right? So what is your experience with using Facebook, and especially Facebook ads? And what are some things that maybe worked and didn't work?
Well, Facebook, you've got breaking the algorithm versus paying for ads. And as we all know, they try to gear the algorithm to bury you, so you would be forced to pay for ads. Now, I've dabbled in ads, and it's very hard to quantify when you do ads who's seeing. I mean, like they'll give you analytics, right? A lot of times it's not going to the demographic you want, or you're questioning. It says it reached 18,000 people. Well, did it reach the same 800 people 6 times, 10 times? We don't know. Unfortunately, I don't think Facebook ads, unless you really put in a lot of money, are very beneficial right now for small publishers who have tight budgets and are trying. I think at this point, the tactics and the keys to breaking the algorithm are what's best, which I've been very successful at that. And there's little things you can do to help break the algorithm that, unfortunately, it takes time and investment on your part besides just putting up a post, because just posting, you're reaching the same 10% of your friend list.
Right. And that's definitely something we're going to talk about. And I want to jump over to Kyler. Now, am I correct, Kyler? I didn't see you on Facebook.
I mean, Foreign Press is on Facebook, not very actively. It's one of those things that, I keep telling myself I'm going to try to do. And then I end up not really pushing it as hard as I should. But yeah, I'm there. And I have my own account, obviously, but I don't really do much on there. I don't hardly post anything, unless I have something else going on Foreign Press page. But yeah,
Gotcha.
So I just don't use it.
And what type of things what kind of things have you done that have either worked or didn't work?
I mean, it's been hit or miss for me. I'm not sure if you're asking about Facebook or just in general, but
in general, it's fine.
Okay. Well, either way, I mean, I haven't noticed anything specific that works. It seems like some things hit, some things don't. And it's like, Phil said, the algorithm is it's obviously trying to get you down because they want you to pay for an ad, pay for promotion, things like that. And so I haven't been able to decipher what it is that, that's why this tweet, got 100 likes or whatever it got. You know what I mean? Like, or why this post on Instagram did really good and this one didn't. Like, I can't find it. Like, I've tried like hashtags, which, you know, hashtags are supposed to help you get more engagement. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And so I haven't really found anything that just, it's really been hit or miss. But the best thing that I've found, I think, has been just consistency. But that's not about like equality in terms of what you're posting. It's just like, make sure you continue to post. But some within that, some things work, some things don't. So
I would agree with that too. And did I perceive then that you're a heavier Twitter user, maybe?
Yes. Yeah. I'm a big Twitter guy.
Gotcha. And by the way, save that one because I got some questions about Twitter next. Eric, man, great to see you. So, you know, I was following your artwork. I thought this thing looked really cool. So, and you mentioned that you're kind of newer to this, right?
Yeah. Sorry, my cat's kind of...
That's okay. Cats are welcome here. Cats are welcome. You can put them on camera if you want. What kind of things have you been doing to promote Blythe? And was there anything you said, wow, this really worked great, or maybe what didn't work?
Well, in my 9 years of working on my book, I've tried a little bit of everything. Phil, man, you're totally right about Facebook. Like, you got to put in a ton of money if you want to see any kind of results. It's nuts. And because ever since Instagram was bought out by Facebook, is the same thing. Like, I used to get a bit of a success with Instagram. You know, you put in like $5 here or there and you actually get a decent amount of views. Now you got to put in minimum of $100 to get the same amount of views you were getting for $5 like before they had been bought out. It's rough. Honestly, I've tried so many different things, and I can say that in the past month, I've been having a lot of success with doing one thing in particular, and it's YouTube. You know, like I while I'm drawing and writing my book, like specifically drawing, I'll just watch tons of anime while I'm working. And so I started doing like reviews on the shows I watch while showing like my work process on the side here. So it's like, this is what I worked on while I watched this show. And then I'll just tell you my thoughts on the show. And like that will get like, I have one that got 500 views in like a few days. And I was like, oh, okay. So like, you know, like, and I try to review shows that might be somewhat like people, if they like this show, they might like my book. You know, I'm not going to review like Dragon Ball Z if my show's not all about fighting. My comic's not all about fighting. But honestly, it's the first time I've seen some like mild success in that department in a long time. And like on Facebook and Instagram, I must post like at least 2 to 3 times a week. And I've been doing it for years. So it's just, it's rough.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. And do you want to drop your handle for YouTube? What's your handle there?
Oh, it's just my name, Eric Taryn Mullins. You look that up and you'll find it right away.
Cool.
I think on YouTube, another good thing is they allow you those video shorts now.
Right.
Because we all know that today's viewer has a short attention span.
Right.
And you got to clip things. So I think that's been a great advent for YouTube to have done for people if you know how to get those shorts out there to clip your stuff.
I think that's a great suggestion, Phil, and that's actually we're headed there. And I just have 1 or 2 quick comments about Facebook before we move on to the next one. I'm a pretty heavy Facebook user, and I noticed that a lot of us creators, I'll speak for myself so I don't seem like please remember when I mention these things, I'm not disparaging anyone. I've just noticed some things work and some don't. And Phil and I have talked a little bit about this backstage, and we all have a tendency to do things like, I call it spamming the link graveyard. There's a lot of these sites and all of us jump in and we just drop our links to our Kickstarters and you get almost no engagement from that. And look, I'm guilty of that too. Guilty as charged. Okay. So what I've been trying to do is to kind of reframe these posts to where you're either engaging with artists or fans of the material, or I've joined a lot of sci-fi groups and I just did a cryptid group and I'm in all the cryptid sighting groups. In other words, what I'm trying to reach is customers more so than other creators. My way that I try to reach creators is here with this show. But I would say that I think Phil is 100% on the money about this Facebook ads in the sense that we sometimes forget on Facebook, we are the product. You know what I mean? It isn't the book that we're selling, it's the person. The way they make money is by revealing our personal information to the internet. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily consumer friendly.
When you share a link that takes them away from Facebook, they don't want that.
Right.
They don't want to take the consumer, their product, away from them. So when you put up a Kickstarter link, or if you even say Kickstarter in a post, they bury you.
Well, and what you have to do, and this is one of the things that I wanted to mention, I have had some success with this. First, you can't use the word link in the post. The link's got to at best be in the comments.
Yep.
That's what they say. And the second thing is don't use the word Kickstarter, which you can use Crank Stomper, Clickstarter. What I do is I do K-Star, and I start out, and people know what I mean by this point. But so, Phil, something interesting about you is you represent a lot of these different artists and very talented folks who I respect throughout the industry. When you're marketing for some of these high-end clients, what is their preferred format, or through your company, what is your best way to promote them?
You mean the artists that I represent?
Correct.
Well, that's a whole different beast altogether. I'm very active in different groups that look to hire, very active in interacting with other publishers, whether small or large. Running my own conventions, I've met a lot of people, networked a lot. Conventions aren't always about how much money you make either. It's about the networking you do. So, I have the contacts to a lot of the big publishers. So I'm actively shopping their portfolios and making sure they're up to date on their portfolios. Because honestly, an editor doesn't want to see 6 to 8 month old art. We want to see where you are now, at what level you're at now. So you're always having them update their portfolios, and then being up to date on who's the editor for this, who's the editor for that, who's been relieved or who's new, who's filling in. And then, of course, actively going into groups that look to hire all the time, and negotiating and talking that way. As far as breaking the algorithm, look, the best way to do it, and I hate to tell you this, is engage with other people. Because the more you engage with them, you start popping up in their feed, which means you have to engage with a lot of people.
Right. Thanks for saying that. I'm not, I'll just chime in here quick on something you said. I'm not 100% sure Facebook does any burying. Here's what I mean by that. Like, I see all of you guys' posts, and here's the reason why, because I follow them. It's something that I'm interested in, and I engage with it. So really, when we're thinking things like, hey, well, the algorithm is burying me, it's a little bit of a warning sign. Something we're doing is not quite engaging with the people. And I think Phil has a good point. We have to try and engage, and that can be as easy as sharing stuff, liking stuff, that
likes,
kind of thing.
Comments are fantastic. Even if it's just a thumbs up in the comment.
Up. Yeah.
Like often I'll put up a post that people, they like to be heard more than they like to hear, right? So they want to voice their opinions. They're very passionate about pop culture and media. And if you put up an interesting enough post to get people to engage, you'll get 120 comments on any given thing. And not only are you now engaging with those 120 people that are going to be in there, you're going to start popping up more, because the algorithm is going to pick you up as something that is garnering attention.
Correct.
And you start to see other people that aren't your 10% of your friendship.
Exactly, the discovery. I agree with that too, Phil. Let's jump over to Kyler. You mentioned Twitter earlier, and this is a good example of it. A lot of people do things along the lines of what I call outrage marketing, where they maybe will try and say something controversial or mildly inflammatory to get some followers. And look, and I get it. Hey, there's no such thing as bad publicity. There's only publicity, right? So, I have never been able to get any traction on Twitter. And I always took it to mean that I'm not particularly clever. I don't say a lot of funny things. But, you mentioned you have some success with it. What kind of techniques are you using to build your Twitter following? And what would you recommend if somebody was just starting?
I mean, the best thing I would do is to follow a bunch of people, and then to engage a bunch of people who are in the community that you want to be a part of, and then to engage with them, and to just to respond to other people's things. That's when I noticed that I'm starting to get more traction, is if I make it a point to, and again, it goes back to what I said earlier with consistency, but like I have to, if I'm consistently responding to other people's tweets, liking and retweeting can't tell any which one's better than the other, if anyone does any actually more than the other one. But I have noticed that like just doing that, just going in and liking a bunch of people's tweets is not as good of engagement as, like Phil said, like leaving an actual comment, responding to someone's tweet is actually going to kind of build you up the most. And then it's also on Twitter, at least in the community I'm a part of, there's people do a really good job about lifting other creators up, and sharing those links to different Kickstarters. Like, you know, I've done them before. Plenty of people do them. Like, you know, if you have a Kickstarter running right now, let us know. And it's the thing I like about Twitter is that Twitter does a better job of showing off those responses compared to Facebook. Facebook, if I make a post on Facebook, say, hey, if you have a Kickstarter, a crowdfunding campaign running right now, comment below and we'll help spread the word. Like, if someone else comes to that, it's not as easy for them to see all those. Say that 20 people respond. It's not as easy to see those on Facebook just due to the nature of the platform and just the way that it is. Where on Twitter, those will pop up. Sometimes those will even pop up as like their own post almost, where it looks like that to someone else if someone likes and retweets it.
I see.
And so it's just Twitter does a better job of being able to see everything, which has kind of been my main reason. When I think of like the social media platforms, like Instagram is hard for me because Instagram's a very visual thing. And like Eric said, it works when you're doing art because you have, especially when you're doing your own book, because you have something consistent to post, some consistent new images, even if it's just a process picture or some concept art or a workspace picture, whatever it is. But then Twitter is good for, you know, like words and more short form things. Mm-hmm. And then Facebook is the one that I kind of haven't really found, because Facebook is text-based like Twitter, but it's not as easy to see. And so that's what I like about Twitter, is that it's easy to see everything. It's easy to see responses. It's easy to see people's, quote tweets. There's retweets. There's all these different ways to respond that I think are just more visible than they are on Facebook.
Sure,
and so that's been a big thing too, is just making sure you respond, making sure you quote tweet other people's things, just to kind of keep that engagement going. So it's not just expecting people to engage with you. You have to be doing engagement as well.
How about, since we're on Twitter, what's your thoughts on it's the blue checkmark application? First of all, are you a blue checkmark person?
I'm not.
Okay. And that's something that you pay for, right?
Yes.
How much is that?
I think $8 a month. I want to say that's one of the numbers I heard, but I did speak with someone who I don't remember I'm not going to say who it is, because I don't remember if I did it on Twitter or if I did it in a private message. So I don't remember. But I asked if there was a notable difference pre-blue checkmark and post-blue checkmark. And they said not really. They said they did it. They were promoting their own crowdfunding campaign, and they looked at the numbers, and like their engagement on their Kickstarter tweets before the blue check mark and after the blue check mark, any differences were negligible. So It didn't really do much. And to me, it just shows it's like a status thing, and it's like a bowing to the corporate machine thing. Right. I'm just not, one thing, I'm not going to do that. And I mean, I did consider, honestly, for Comics from the Kitchen, especially, I was like, that's why I asked someone else. I was like, if this works, you know, it might be worth doing for 2-3 months while we're building up the campaign and things like that. But from what I heard from a couple of different sources, it's not really doing anything. So I just decided not to, and I don't plan to.
Switch it up. Yeah, I'm a fan of switching things up. That's why, Eric, you mentioned earlier how you started this YouTube channel. How long have you been doing the YouTube channel?
Well, my YouTube channel's been up for probably about 6 years. I used to do like a lot of illustrators, as I would do sketches, live stream them, hang out with people. The problem is that like the people you draw in for this are usually people that want to learn how to draw, and not necessarily people that want to buy your comic.
Right.
Which it took me a long time to realize that. And I kind of got like a bit of a following. Like if my gear was really to like do like how-to lessons, then it probably would have been a lot more successful if I started focusing at that. But you know, we're all here to make comics.
Right. And like I say, there's really no wrong answers here. As you can tell, we kind of try and brainstorm a little bit to see what kind of things might work. Do you mind if I ask, Eric, how many subscribers you have?
Currently, I'm at 99. And no joke, like I started doing like these YouTube videos like for like review stuff like almost a month ago. And before that, I was at like 30 after years of doing YouTube videos. Like, that's terrible. And I market myself like crazy. And kind of like you were saying, you know, like I'll never just throw up links. Like I put individual comments for almost all the 100 Facebook groups I post on. I respond to everybody all the time. Like I like try to make it as human and less corporation as possible when dealing with any person out there that wants to support my book. So like, since I started doing these review things, I got so much so quickly, and then it's kind of like funneling up where I'm seeing like I'm starting to get a couple more followers on Instagram and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. So I'm gonna try doing this for maybe like a year. It's funny how it's like you have to do it for a while, right? Like any like platform, I can't be like, oh, I'll try this out for like a month or two. No, like Kyler said, you got to be consistent, and you got to do it for long enough so that it starts to show if it's actually going to come somewhere or not. Like my sketches I did years ago, where it took me about 2 years and I was like, this isn't working. Then I would like do sketches and I would do speed up videos of them and just me talking over on how I did them. And even that was like still just not good enough. And so, you know, like I'm trying everything.
Trying everything. And well, I will tell you, go ahead.
Do you mind if I just have a question? I mean, this is for anybody, I guess, but specifically for Eric, with just what you're talking about. Have you had any success with, or is it, like I said, anybody has any success with going live on YouTube, like for while you're drawing, or or on, you know, Instagram or some other platform? Have you had success with live streams of working? Has that worked for you, or how does that work? How has that worked?
I know that there's a couple people online that are like heavy hitters that make a living off of just doing these live drawing stream events. And I'm not talking like 7K followers. I'm talking like 500K or more. Yeah. And I honestly think it's because they got into YouTube early, or they got into Instagram early. Like the second you get into a platform that blows up, if you're there like near the beginning and you're really being consistent, you're going to like explode so quickly before you start having all these gatekeepers showing up, and whether they're monetary ones or things like that, that's going to slow things down. And so when I got in, it was pretty early, but not nearly early enough.
Yeah. Got you.
Okay. I'm a YouTube guy also, and I'll tell you just my limited experience with it. I've been doing it for about 8 months, and I had a flaw in what I was doing. I will share it with anybody. What I do is I was going on social media and I was spamming the links and saying, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. And I was having not too much success with that strategy. So I said, well, let me try a YouTube channel that feels a little bit more like a show, right? That's the Top 11 show. And it's what we do is we take a topic. For example, we did the top 11 sci-fi films that are not Star Wars, right? And what it does, it tends to make people want to come and chime in, and they, you know, customers want to feel like they're discovering something more so than where they're being sold, if you know what I mean. And I always say to people, well, you know, the world probably can't absorb one more YouTube channel, but in my experience, it can. And if you need more evidence of that, you know, you can look at the people who they live stream themselves playing video games. Look, I love video games. I'm what you might call a hardcore gamer, but I wouldn't watch 2 or 3 or 4 video game streams. And yet that's exactly what people do. And they get, you know, hundreds of thousands of people watching these things. So, you know, what the correct answer is, I don't know. But I suggest that the answer lies in something that feels more like a show and less like a commercial.
Got you.
Right?
Yeah, people are pretty sick of marketing. Like I used to like take my illustrations and like package them all nicely, and it would have all my information at the bottom, and I put my panels in something and I would cut them up and I would like kind of distribute it that way through a lot of social medias. And then I kind of realized that that wasn't working. Like I started switching it up, and when you show, like, if I take a picture of myself drawing on my tablet, that's going to get more views than my polished like thing that I shared, you know, because people are sick of commercials. It just looks like the minute you're going to skip on every YouTube channel, you know, like, so they want something to feel real.
They want to be entertained, and they want instant gratification in their entertainment.
Yeah.
Exactly, Phil. Exactly.
I mean, like if you look at any show that has a slow build, people get bored and drop off. The attention spans are so tight because we have everything at our fingertips, and we're so inundated and flooded with options now that something is going to go by the wayside. So we've got to entertain and stand out quickly, and it's like our first book, our first issue of our new book. We have to balance the pacing to where we get to something right away to interest the reader, grab them in, while balancing not pushing the pace too fast because we have a story to tell, right? Well, it's the same thing with any live entertainment show we do. You have to bring them in fast, get their interest fast, but at the same time, not burn it out fast, and it's such a hard balance.
It really is. I struggle with that too, Phil. And just a quick note from the comments there, Eric, they do a live draw stream. We see the Madness commenting that, hey, you're definitely welcome to come there. And that's been a pretty good group of people. They've helped me with a number of things. So please feel free to join in that crew. Thank you, Madness Comic Network, for airing our show. Speaking of marketing, hey, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the crowdfunding platforms that we use. In this case, we're going to talk a little bit about Tragedy. This is Phil's new book. And first, just let me make a quick comment. I do follow his work, and we met briefly in Baltimore last year, but it's got terrific artwork. It's story driven, which is something that I prefer. And, he had mentioned earlier that one of the struggles, and I don't mean to speak for you, Phil, I'm going to let you address this, but it'd be fair to say that he's had some very successful campaigns. He's what you and I would call a 5-figure man. But in this last one, he feels like he's losing traction a little bit. Phil, can you tell us a little bit what you attribute that to and what the solution might be to reverse it?
I think it's a combination of things. I think the economy is tough right now, and people, yes, they're still spending money, but not on a wide variety of things. They're being more selective now of where their money is going to go, right? People working jobs probably that they don't like, and you're going to pick and choose when your money's tight. You're going to pick the one thing you want to throw your money at, as opposed to maybe before it was 5. Mm-hmm. The other thing is there's so many comic books on Kickstarter now. There's so much competition. You're inundated with all of that something's going to fall by the wayside at some point when you mix those two together, especially. For me, the one thing I noticed in the campaign as well is not only are my backers lower, but the amount per backer is $10 to $15 less. Which is revenue, right? That's revenue lost.
Correct.
So that's an issue. Those are combinations of things that I think are contributing to it at this point. But the other thing is, I really feel Kickstarter isn't a reader platform. Can
you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, most people, I think, that back a Kickstarter are backing because they're a collector and investor, meaning they want the cool cover that they like.
Got it.
Or the swag that you have on your campaign.
Sure.
Or they want the big name cover that they can grade and maybe turn around at some point and profit. Whereas, like, for me, usually, again, this has been a really anomaly, this campaign. The first 150 people that would come in are my readers. They came in right away. I would fund in an hour. I have 150 backers. I'd be at $4,000 or $5,000 in the first several hours. And those were the readers. Those are the people that are coming back because they enjoy the story. Sure. Then I would start attracting the collectors. Like, oh, wow, you've got a Will Spartasio cover or Bill Sienkiewicz or whatever. And I would start to get them, or the Kickstarter exclusives that people do, etc. And that's another big thing that you can see is everybody is falsely inflating prices by limiting print runs intentionally. It's only 20 a piece.
Again, expand on what do you mean by? Can you expand on that?
So I won't name any names, but there are bigger names in the industry, and this is a smart business move. I'm not knocking this, but it's what's going on is that rare. Like for me, I get big names doing covers, but I don't limit them. But say, like, I have a Bill Sienkiewicz cover. What if I decided Bill Sienkiewicz is limited only to 50, and now because it's limited to 50 only, I'm going to mark it up to $100 book, and Bill Sienkiewicz fans are going to come in and they're going to buy it, and it's a book that would have been $5 to $15 if I didn't do that with a 50 limit run. So I'm falsely inflating the price. And then the other thing some people do is they'll do that, and then they'll recolor that book, that cover, a different way, and that's a new limited variant. And you're really, that's. I'm not going to get into the ethics of that.
Hey, listen, Phil, you're preaching to the choir, and it's something that I've noticed too. And again, don't take this as Tim is disparaging it, because what I learned is I have to start doing this, and now I've been doing it. When I started, Phil, I was a guy who said, "Are you ready for this?" I said, "I'm not going to do variant covers." How stupid does that sound now? So
You
now in
can't
my
on
last book,
Kickstarter.
you got to do it to survive. And of
Yeah.
course, I learned that there is a collector market, and that's something that they do need to. They need to have those choices. And we even did something this time. We said, you know, I love old black and white horror books. I realize that's a very selective niche market, but we released our book in a black and white version. It looks like a creepy or eerie magazine from Kurtis, if you're familiar with those old Marvel horror books. And by the way, it was a great seller. But as Phil mentioned, it isn't a different book in some way. And
Right.
you'd think it would even be less expensive because it's black and white. It's not. It's because it's got additional production and some relettering. And also we did like a chrome logo. It's got like a bright green logo. It's pretty weird and creepy. But let's do a quick call to action on that. So that's Tragedy. Oh, sorry, I pulled up the other one. Let's take a quick look at that one. That's Tragedy, man. I got to recommend it. This is a terrific product. You got some high line artists. So if you're on the fence and you're not sure what to check out, come on over and check out Tragedy. Okay, so I want to jump over here next and check out this Zoop campaign. This is Comics from the Kitchen by Foreign Press Comics. I got that correct,
Yep.
Kyle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First off, I'd like to ask you, I am not as familiar with Zoop. Of course, I've heard of it, and I'm always looking for alternative sources. Can you tell us a little bit about your decision to go with Zoop instead of Kickstarter?
Zoop is something that I heard of a while ago, probably like maybe early 2020, maybe something like that. Late 2020, I don't know, something like that. But I'd heard about it, and it's a platform that's for comics and for comic adjacent things. Like I think they've had a game, maybe a puzzle that went with some comic related project. But it's all comics, and the difference with them is that they handle most of the heavy duty, the nitty gritty stuff.
Sure.
So like
they do fulfillment and everything.
No, they don't do the fulfillment, but like they set up the campaign, they do the pre-launch, they get all the stuff, and they help they promote it a little bit on their on their thing, their social medias and things like that. But it's just been a different process, because in Kickstarter, I'm in control of every single step of the process. I know like the whatever graphics I want to use on my story for my campaign, I get to make those, or I get to decide how they look. I get to decide how everything looks. And on Zoop, I don't get to make those decisions. So it's been something that I've just been interested in trying. And I figured this was the place to do it. One of the creators in here, Dan Mambiela, he had a book on Zoop that did really well, and so he highly recommended it. And then there was all the stuff that happened with Kickstarter, where they said they were going to be on the blockchain, and then no one wanted to distance themselves and all that stuff. And then that ended up coming out to nothing. So we all freaked out over it for no reason. But anyway, my point's just that it's just something I've always wanted to try, and it's been interesting. It's been a different experience than Kickstarter in a lot of ways. But I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just been different. There's been pros and cons to it. So.
Gotcha. And tell us, as I say, we're just meeting tonight. We met through Jeff Haas, right?
Yes.
The publicist. Yeah. Great guy. I love him, by the way.
Yeah.
So let's do a quick call to action. That's Comics from the Kitchen. That's over on Zoop right now.
Yes.
From Foreign Press Comics. Can you give us just a quick synopsis? I'm not familiar with this book.
Comics from the Kitchen. It is equal parts comic and cookbook. So the book is all dedicated to food memories and the people who helped us make them. And so the book is, I knew that I wanted to do something relating to food. And so each story within Comics from the Kitchen we have over 20 stories from different creators, and they're all based around food. Some are, serious and heartfelt and very personal. Like I have a very personal story about my grandfather in there. Other people have written stories about their family and their fathers and things like that. And along with each story, you get a recipe that is featured that goes along with the meal featured in that story. And so it's, like I said, it's equal parts both. So you can get these like 20 really good comics, but you also get 20 really good recipes. That's
really cool, man.
The recipes, the thing I really like about it is that, like, yeah, the recipes are great. And like the recipe for mine isn't that groundbreaking of a recipe, but it is, because part of my recipe comes out of a package. Like, it's not anything that big of a deal, but I think that my story, along with several others, that the recipe, once you read the story and you get that like heart and the love that recipe came from, that recipe is going to mean a lot more to the people who do back the story and who do read and cook these recipes eventually. So it's been something that I'm really proud of, and I'm really excited to see get made, because it means a lot to me personally as a project.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you that it's an original concept. I kind of dig it, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, not for nothing, I think we all strive to find more original ways to reach our readers and our backers. And you got a bell ringer there, man. You're definitely my first, my first recipe / cookbook.
Good.
That's really kind of cool. And thank you, Madness Comic Network, going to 30 groups. This is the kind of thing I'm saying. I don't. We always want to help each other and to help individual creators. And I'm super grateful when people do it, because we all say we want to do it. And it's something that we kind of actively have to strive to do that. So I'm real grateful, and best of luck with Comics from the Kitchen. That sounds really cool. Yeah. So let's jump over to Blythe. Am I saying that correctly, Eric?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I had a chance to sort of preview this before we got on the air. And so now it's really cool. So you write it, you draw it. What all do you do? Tell us soup to nuts what you're doing here.
Everything. I do all the writing, the drawing, the self-publishing. I'd say the only thing I don't do is like edit, because I go over my work 1,000 times over, but at one point I'm going to miss something. I'm going to miss a letter, or I'm going to misspell something. It just happens. So like I have like a couple, like I have 2 friends where one's actually an editor, and I try not to bug her too much. And then I have another friend that's just really good at the English language to help me out. So like I kind of go through it like that. I've been, like I said, I've been working on it for about 9 years. I started drawing it in 2014, but I started writing it back in like 2006, because I had like all these ideas and I really wanted to create my whole universe and all my characters and finish writing my story before I started drawing it. So like I'm already like, it's going to be 15 chapters when I'm done. And this one's chapter 9 right here.
And can you give us a quick synopsis, Eric?
Yeah. So imagine like alternate realities and all the galaxies and universes and everything like that could potentially exist in all these different multiverses and everything. And imagine they're all encompassed in like an egg. And the shell of that egg, there are creatures that live there. And so on one side, you have these creatures called the Verilic, and they kind of look like angels a bit with like their halos. Like in my book, they're like hard drives, and they're very computer oriented. They're kind of like bees or wasps. So they're kind of aggressive, and they collect information from all these different galaxies and universes. Some of them get wiped out. Other ones come back in, and they collect the information. They bring it back to their hive to be able to keep building their hive. The other side is full of creatures called Macopians, and they're kind of like, I guess, very super emotional monsters. So when they're happy, they're super happy, and when they're angry, they're very angry. And so these two sides have been at war since forever. It's like a classic thing. Mm-hmm. And at one point, you have one creature that kind of shows up, and that's like the girl that you see on the front here. And she's so powerful, and she's a fusion of the two, and they don't know how it happened because it's not possible. And she just starts killing both sides like you can't believe. Eventually, they realize they can't beat her, and she's slowly wiping out both species. So she gives them an ultimatum. She says, okay, so now you're going to have a forced peace, no more fighting. If somebody breaks the peace, I'm just going to eliminate everyone on the side that breaks the peace. So then 1,000 years go by. These species are not really talking with one another. They're not getting along. Some of them are a bit, but not enough. So then she decides, all right, well, I'm going to make a college, and you have no choice but to send your student, like your kids, to this college. Like if they want to get jobs and stuff like that throughout all these multiverses and do things, they have to go through here first, and they have to go through it together, and you don't get to communicate with them while they're doing it. In an attempt to force peace by having a younger generation communicating with one another. And so it's kind of like all about emotional conflict. And like, so this is just my setup. My whole story is actually, you just followed the students on one single day, like a 24-hour period. So the first issue is like the night before, where you have like a guy playing, well, like one of the characters playing video games with his next door neighbor, and they're talking about the next day. And by the time you get to chapter 9, they finish up their lunch and they're walking to the 3rd class. So it's really like all the events that happen in that day.
I like the art style. It has sort of a modern design to it, and it definitely got an original art style. I definitely recommend to the viewers to check that out. That's Blythe over on Kickstarter right now. So let's jump back to Phil. Phil, you mentioned something earlier about the short attention span of well, everyone these days, to be frank. And one of the things that I had done was to stick my foot into the TikTok waters. Do you have any thoughts on TikTok? Well, first, are you using it, or do you have any thoughts?
I don't use it. One of my shortcomings is I'm not very tech savvy, and I'm already struggling to operate on like 2 platforms, and there's so many.
What are your main two? What are your main two?
Right now, it's Instagram and Facebook. I really want to do more with Twitter. I haven't had the resources, the manpower at this point in time. Because I do agree with Kyler. I think Twitter is really an untapped resource for me. I think it's really a great place. But as far as TikTok, I do think that is the platform right now because, again, it caters to the younger demographic, the younger core demographic. It has the videos that can be short and sweet or a little longer. And it's really the niche that hits this generation. I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just this generation. Look, when we were growing up, I mean, I'm 50. When I grew up, I had an Atari. Yeah. And then you watched TV shows, but if you missed that episode of G.I. Joe,
it's next week. Yeah.
That's it. It wasn't coming back on.
Right.
Now this generation, it's a blessing and a curse for them that they can see anything, anytime they want, anywhere they want, YouTube, whatever. And so it's only natural that they've lost their attention span because you're doing this all the time where we were able to focus on one thing. So short clips like YouTube and Instagram are trying to follow the TikTok model.
Right.
And that's why Instagram's doing those shorts that they're doing now, the videos. And they realized that the best way to reach their consumer base is to give nice, short, entertaining in like a minute and a half clips, and go from there. I mean, to be honest with you, I have a trailer for my campaign that's 50 seconds, and the analytics show that less than half the people could sit through the whole trailer. It's like, it's a 50-second trailer.
That's
and
about
it's
right.
not a boring
That's
trailer. It's got stuff going on. So, I think TikTok is very viable right now. It is probably the platform. But again, you have to have the content though. Like nobody wants to see me cosplaying and dancing around and frolicking. And I'm not an artist. I can't draw. So what do I do as a publisher and a writer? I don't know. Maybe I get some artists, or maybe I try to find a way to do some short animations for my comics and my characters. Something.
Yeah. Well, I have some thoughts on that, but I'll wait till it comes around to my turn. So, Kyler, how about you? Are you a TikTok fella? What's your thought on the short video form?
Regrettably, I'm a TikTok person. I don't like it, but I am. I'm a TikTok person in that I watch TikToks. I don't use it very much as a poster. I've been doing it more and more because.
Hold on a second, Phil. There's your example. So you actually view TikTok content?
Oh yeah, for sure. Way more than I should.
There you go.
And he's right. I have no attention span, but I do think that it's also has a thing to do with just it's not just attention span. I don't think. I think I don't know. I think that there are it's about there's something that's happening. Maybe it is just a straight attention span. I just think it's more than that people aren't paying attention. I think that it's just things are kind of more fast paced, which maybe is attention span. Maybe this makes no sense at this point, but I'll get back to my main point, which was just, I have been using TikTok more, especially with this book, because my trailer for this, which I haven't actually posted anywhere other than the Zoot page yet, and I keep meaning to, is it was just basically I made like a little mock cooking video, and then at the end there's the book pops out and it's a whole thing. But hold
on a second, Kyler, that's genius. This is exactly the kind of thing I'm saying. Look, I don't, me personally, well, I'll save my answer to the end, but I'm just going to say right now, that's a great idea.
I appreciate it, but it's like one of the only good ideas I've had for this book. But no, on TikTok, and the thing I like about TikTok and the fact that Instagram and Facebook and YouTube are all using the same platform now is that, because my problem before is like, okay, if I make a video, I have that video for one platform. But now I make a video, I can post that same TikTok, which is what everyone else is doing anyway. I'm not the person who thought of this, but you know, I make a TikTok, I can post that onto it's an Instagram reel, and I haven't gotten to this point, but I should. But now I can make it a YouTube short. I can also post it to my Facebook page. I can even post it to Twitter. I don't think you would do as good on Twitter, but it would.
Facebook story. You have the Facebook stories you can do too.
I mean, Facebook, they have their stories that and stories is something on Instagram that I've heard, and TikTok has some kind of story feature that I don't really understand.
Well, but the TikTok, and this one I do know, the let me say this the right way. The TikTok cross posting does not dump it into the Facebook story, which would arguably be the most effective way. What it does, it posts the link on the page, which you'd have to click again.
That's weird. I mean, it just depends. Like, I personally never, ever touch Facebook stories, but there's the Facebook Reels, which is like the little short videos, which is different. But what I've been doing for this book is I just make like little cooking videos, and so like basically I try to do it every time like I make a meal, but I forget. But I just record little snippets of like every time I, you know, like, oh, here's a snippet of me cutting this chicken. Here's a snippet of me throwing it in a pan. And I just put all that together in like a 50-second video in CapCut on my phone, which if anybody here doesn't have CapCut, you need to get it. It's awesome for making videos. It's just a video editing software for your phone. But anyway, I just make a video, and altogether, not counting the actual time it takes to cook a meal, I can make a video and post it to TikTok in 15 minutes.
Nice.
Less. And so that's been really fun for me, just to do something different. And I want to find other ways to do it. It's just some of them can be very time consuming. So I haven't really got into it too much.
Even first of all, let me tell you, I think your idea is terrific. And I would definitely love to try some of that. And like I say, you've got a good concept with the recipe. That's a great way to engage. And it doesn't necessarily sound like buy my stuff. It's content, right? But the one part where I would have a mild objection is 15 minutes worth of time. In my case, I would think that's too much for my TikTok videos. I literally put about 2 minutes into each one, 3 minutes. And like I say, I'll save my answer till the end. But Eric, let's jump over to you. Are you a fan of the short form video? And are you a TikTok user? Or you're strictly
my wife does. She hits up TikTok pretty frequently. I've realized, like, to kind of go up with what Kyler was saying, where he's like, oh, I don't really know. I think that people just like to feel good. And TikTok's like short little sweet videos where usually it's things that make you feel good, or it's funny, or it'll make you laugh, or it's cats or animals doing things, or it's just, or maybe you'll learn something, but really quickly where you're like, oh, that's a fun little life hack right there. So it's like every time you're watching these things, for the most part, it's tiny little things that keep making you feel good throughout the whole entire day. So it's just, I could see that being one thing. Another thing is like, because I personally, like, I know that the short reels and things like that are pretty popular, but I've been noticing in like the past, I'd say like 3 or 4 months, that really long things have been getting popular too. Like podcasts that are like 2 hours long,
right,
will get massive amount of views, where I'm like, shoot, this is like, things are like shifting a little bit. It's like, because when you're on a bus for 3 hours, you can watch TikTok videos for the 3 hours long, or like the hour bus ride. But at one point, like, if you want something with a bit more consistency, you listen to a podcast or an audio book, or like a live stream like this. So I can see like certain people slowly wanting something like that, because there's more, it's more coherent and consistent. But I definitely understand the appeal to the short videos. I don't do them. My wife for years is like, you should just do them. But when I do my YouTube videos, I put a lot of jokes in there, like a lot. Like, I'm just like shotgunning jokes here and there, and then making things kind of serious, and then more shotgunning jokes when you least expect it, just because that keeps people on their toes and it keeps them interested. It's also like camera angles too, right? If it's always the same camera angle, it kind of gets boring after a while. So you got to find different like little tactics.
Yeah, and for TikTok, I'll jump in the water here. And by the way, thanks for your great answers, everybody. I think that you've all unearthed a kind of truth. And what I try to be aware of is that I don't know as much as I think I know. That's the only thing that I'm very sure of. And, look, I learned this from my daughter. I've got a daughter that's 26 years old. She's the White House historian. Right. So she does a TikTok. It is based on history and touring various museums around the world. And she does these little things and you think, well, what kind of traction could that possibly get? She's got something like 50,000 followers. So I went, okay, look, I got to jump in the water and try this. So I'm not particularly an interesting fella. I'm not particularly funny. I'm not really all that good looking. You probably noticed. But one of the things that I do is I make comics. And there's people like, that's my angle. Hey, I make comics. And what I do is I put up like a page behind me that I've been working on. And it's me talking over it, saying things like, hey, this is a representative of the latest page, blah, blah. We did a thing. We do music in the books. They're fictional bands. And they're written as if they were articles in Rolling Stone, which is a music magazine. I don't even know if people really know what that is anymore, but it looks like you're reading about an actual band. And of course we made it all up, but it has a feeling of being genuine. So I made that one this morning. It took me literally 2 minutes to make it. And what you do, it's what they call a green screen. You put it behind you and you're like talking over it. You can see your head. You can raise or shrink how big you want your persona to be. And that one's probably been up for about 7 hours. It's got about 720 views already.
That's good.
I think that's a really good idea. I hadn't thought about that, and I'm gonna do it. But
yeah.
well, I just wanted to say one thing that was on what you said was, I think a big part, like how your daughter has, you wouldn't think that would get a lot of traction, but it does. Is that a thing about TikTok? And I guess this is true of every social media, but I see it a lot with TikTok more than anything else. Is that there are very specific niches in TikTok. And there is like, and people will call it, their history. I bet whatever your daughter's on, someone calls it history talk. Yep. And there's book talk, and there's fantasy talk.
Making comics TikTok.
Exactly.
Guys, jump right in. I'm in making comics TikTok.
I'm saying that's what I like. Comic talk, I assume, would be probably what they would call it. But like, there's a lot of different niches, and I think it's just a matter of, it goes back to what I've said a bunch of times already today, was consistency. I think that being consistent in those posts and being involved and just creating content that people want to see more of will bring you back, because within that niche that TikTok has, the niches that it has, like there will be creators and people will follow that creator like differently. Obviously this has been happening since the early 2000s with celebrity culture becoming what it did, and then like social media and all that. But I've noticed it, I can't explain it or quantify it necessarily, but it's a different thing than I've seen before happen on other social medias in terms of people following their niche or following their creators. So.
Totally agree. It's and it's like, I think it was Phil said it earlier, there's a little bit of shift right now in all the media, and we're not really 100% sure where it's going to land. But I should probably give this example. I'm a Kickstarter fella. I've done 6 Kickstarters. And one of the times I was showing a reward, and what it is, it's a poster you could get. We call it a lobby card. It's like a thick cardboard stock poster. And it's just me saying something like, hey, here's one of the posters you can get on our new campaign. And the algorithm snagged me, and it got 4,800 views. And it's me holding a poster. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not dancing, I'm not taking my shirt off. And it's by far my most successful one. And you could make a pretty good point. It was probably my least interesting one, but somehow that's what snagged. So, I mean, I would recommend it if you guys wanted to try it. I'm relatively tech savvy, I would suppose I'd say. But that said, I don't get any action on Instagram. And again, I'm not ripping on somebody that does well on it, but I look at Instagram and I can tell, oh, this isn't my gig. And some of it's because of what I followed. It's all, beautiful ladies in various stages. But that probably tells you more about what I'm doing, I guess. But the truth is, I don't have any of that kind of content. So it's a little bit disingenuous for me to, and maybe we'll circle around about that because I know this would be a great question for Phil. You ready for this, Phil? At what point, I think you know where this is going. Hey, man, look, sex sells. Am I right? And I sense from talking to the group here that we don't particularly have any kind of sexual content. Would that be a correct assessment of our products?
Mm-hmm. For me, okay. Yeah, correct.
Okay, and by the way, again, this isn't Tim disparaging anybody. I'm not stupid. I get that this is where you get your 5-figure Kickstarters from. Phil, at what point, or would you even consider, hey, I'm going to start releasing some what I would call sexy covers, or what they call in the industry boob covers? Is it something you would do, or are you saying absolutely not? It does not represent my brand. Take the stage, Phil.
Absolutely not. It doesn't represent my brand. I mean, I'm not a prude against sex and beautiful women. I happen to be married to one and have 2 kids. That didn't happen by magic. But for me, comics, that's not what comics are for. And I like real women. But anyway, I have 2 little girls, and I want to write characters that show strength in mind and heart and spirit, not in TNA. I get there's a market for it. Of course there is. I mean, people are making $70,000 campaigns, and I don't knock them. Make your money. Good for you. This isn't a judgment on them or a knock on them at all. It's just not for me, and it's not what I think my publishing company wants to represent and put out there.
Okay. And I mean, I appreciate the honest answer. And remember, there's no wrong answers tonight. This is all where, I want to learn Phil's perspective and to learn all your perspectives. Kyler, how about you? Is there any chance that you would delve into sexual content to help increase the numbers of your projects?
Oh, yeah. No, not real. Kind of. In terms of, I'm not afraid of it. If something were to come along that I was like, hey, this is a story I want to tell, or if, as for Impress, if someone else is like, hey, this is a story I really want to tell, and it involved, something of a sexual nature, and they want to do a TNA cover, go for it. Like, I'll support that. I don't think I would do it for just for the heck of it. There is something that this made me think of, actually. It happened on Twitter. I know he posted on other social media as well, but someone, Tyler Carpenter, he did an experiment. Have you guys seen this?
I haven't seen the experiment. I know who Tyler is.
Well, he posted a Kickstarter campaign under a completely different name, did minimal social media posting about it, like at least on his own profile, no word about it at all. And he got funded within the first, few days or so. And I have a
quick question though. When he did it, because I watched it, and the thing is that he uses his own computer and all his own stuff to do it. So the algorithm usually works with IPs as well. So I'm just saying, depending, did he use somebody else's computer and everything when he did it? Because he never talked about that. I watched his whole show about it, and I was skeptical. I saw it happen. I believe it. It's just.
I have some skepticism around it too. It's unrelated, but I just think it was interesting that. I don't know. It just kind of showed me that, that they're definitely Kickstarter as a platform. Comics Kickstarter has an audience, and that fits in. His whole point was, make your, you basically need to build your audience and find the audience that is going to buy the products you want to buy or that you want to make. And so it just showed me that, and it's just an interesting kind of thought experiment, because the same question you're asking right now, Tim, is the same thought I had, is would I do that? Because basically it proved to me that is within the Kickstarter audience as a platform. That's the Comics Kickstarter audience. And also that another thing that he pointed out someone else pointed in a similar conversation was that variant covers are another big part of the Kickstarter audience. Right. And that's just what people want. People want to see. That's why, if you look at a lot of those stories that are getting $50,000, of course they do have TNA on them and all that stuff, but they also do have, cover A, cover B, cover C, correct, sometimes up to cover E or F, and so that's just part of the Kickstarter audience, So I just think it was just something interesting, because I had a similar thought based off of what happened with Tyler's little experiment.
Sure. Let's do a quick shout out there. I see we got Whitefire Comics. I'm a fan of Duran's book. That's The Forsaken Future. The book's good. I was a backer of that one, and I'm a fan of good writing. I think he's got some good writing. And Christian, we'll give you a shout out. He's over there on Fund My Comic. That is the new platform that lots of people are recommending and having some success with. So best of luck with your project, Christian. Hopefully we can get you a couple of backers. So let's jump over to Eric here. Now, you got some characters that are, they're kind of stylized and attractive women, but I don't perceive you to be really sexual content. Can you chime in and share your thoughts here on this subject?
Well, I've got no problem with sexual content. Would I do a naughty and nice cover myself? No. But it's just because I am not particularly into it. I over-sexualize all my characters in my book. So there are women or females that are all over-sexualized. I do the same thing with guys. I make it very important that the guys are crazy, in good shape and everything too. And I try to make my characters very three-dimensional so that certain people can end up liking every single character. I mean, the anime community is kind of like that. They'll watch a show, they stick onto one character, and then they just love that character more than life itself. And it's my goal to make all my characters like that. I I've already been asked before if I would do like one of them, a naughty cover for it. And I was just like, no, even though, like I said, like I'll go almost to the limit. And even in my comic, like it's a bunch of young adults and like some of them kind of hook up a little here and there. And sometimes you can get pretty heated. Like, would I go the full distance and like show everything? I don't think so. I think that from a storytelling perspective, it's not something that I want. And if I started doing covers like that, then it will, it's disappointing because I think it'll generate a specific type of audience that will be expecting something from my book
well said.
that isn't in my book. And I want people to read it. Like, I work really hard on making every panel look as nice as the drawing that you see back here. So it takes me a long time to draw it. And so I want, like, if someone looks at this and like, that's sexy, and then reads my book, you'll be like, hey, this is full of sexy stuff. Yep. If I draw like a crazy pornographic thing, they will get duped. So it's just for me, it's like,
and that's the other
I
thing.
won't do it.
That's the other thing is I plan on going through distribution. You can't if you have stuff like that. That's stuff that's strictly going to be crowdfunding, and you make your money in crowdfunding. But if you want to go distribution, it's like you said it perfectly, Eric. You want readers. You know, the booby stuff is going to get collectors and investors, where you want readers. I want readers personally. Growth is through readers, in my opinion.
But one thing I'd like to note is that if, like, down the line, I have people that make, you know, like R-rated stuff based off of my characters, because that, again, in like the anime community is massive. You watch any kind of anime show in your life, I guarantee you there are some more pornographic comics to that show than you can imagine. And then I'm totally cool with that. I'm like, yeah, have fun.
Well, and, you know, I'll just chime in here at the end of this topic, which is, you know, I'm keenly aware that that is a very successful business model. I almost sound a little bit like Phil talking, because I know that he is carefully talks about this subject. But I will say this. At the end of the day, these people talk about, hey, they did this $50,000 Kickstarter. And by the way, I'm friends with a terrific guy by the name of Jim Noble, who, you know, he's got something like 26 sexy variants. Yeah. And he's very successful. He does this.
And his books are porn.
Well, they are. And, you know,
they're just downright porn.
I guess where I wanted to go with this is, you know, even the people who make these books or buy them and receive them, at the end of the day, no one is saying, hey, that guy's a great writer. And at the end of my journey, that's what I want people to say. And I'm sensing that Phil's journey is not too different than mine. And what I mean by that, he's kind of known for better writing, better art, and what you and I would call a professional level of detail. And while we're on the subject of these variants, Phil's got some killer artists working on his book. Phil, can you tell us a little bit about the decision for your variant? First of all, how many do you have on the tragedy campaign? And then tell us a little bit about each artist and why you chose them.
Well, as you can see behind me, I'm an art collector. So I also, besides getting big names from Marvel, DC, Image, I like to get independent artists' work. I like to hire them and get them out there. Not that my book is huge, but, you know, get them work and get something shown. Running my own conventions in New York and being an art collector for years, I've made relationships and friendships with some well-known people in the industry. So I do get a lot of, you know, quote unquote big names for books. Like I have a Bill Sienkiewicz for the trade paperback coming up with Chris Bachalo. Looks like David Mack.
Wow.
And they're all wonderful to work with, professional, you know, obviously they're legends in the industry.
Sure.
On this campaign, I don't have the quote-unquote huge name. I do have Alex Sinclair, he's Jim Lee's colorist. He colors a lot of covers for me.
Yeah.
But there's 12 variants on this campaign. I do a lot. Now, I don't try to milk people with the variants, though. I actually did a book of covers because I understood that there were people that maybe they wanted 6 or 7 of them, and I didn't want them to have to buy the same book 6, 7 times. Is that smart business-wise? Probably not. You know, do the George Lucas, get them to buy the same thing 15 times.
If it works, man, if it works.
And I'm not against that. I just didn't want to do it. So I did a book of covers for the first 2 campaigns. So, I mean, I have like 70 covers over my 5 issues, to be honest with you. I have a lot. And it's just been fun. I own all the original artwork as well. Again, being a collector, and I have other reasons for it. But So yeah, I have the big names, but little secret, it's not for Kickstarter. The big names aren't for them. I have plans to go to distribution,
Right.
and the name of the game is the 1 in 100 variant or the 1 in 50 variant.
Right.
To entice comic stores and comic online dealers to buy my no-name book. I mean, why do it doesn't matter if my book looks pretty. There's no trust that my book is going to make them money. But Bill Sienkiewicz can.
Yeah.
Will Spatasio can. Chris Picciolo can. And if I get them to do, say, 1 in 50 or 1 in 100, they can sell that Bill Sienkiewicz. They can get it graded, sell it for $100, $150 because it's limited and it's whatever. And they can sell that book and make up for most of the 100 books that they got from me at the regular rate of like 40%.
Right.
And then sell the rest of the inventory. But I'm getting my sales. I'm getting my book out there because they're going to sell those 100 issues. They want to get rid of them, right? They don't want to sit on them. And that just helps me through distribution and comic stores.
Yeah, so, I buy the theory. I see where you're going.
It's looking long term. I'm not looking here. I'm here, but I'm also paying attention to what's out there. And this is ever changing, and crowdfunding is changing. Kickstarter is changing. For example, they had a big bot issue where bots were going in and pledging, and then people were losing a ton of money at the end, and it was hurting campaigns badly. I lost $3,700 in 4 days, the last 4 days of a campaign that still did 13 grand, thank God. But that would have been a 17 grand campaign.
Wow.
It's a big loss. And then you see, like I said, Kickstarter being inundated with so many comic books now, where it was more board games and other stuff. Now comics are huge on Kickstarter, and now you've got other crowdfunding platforms. You also have tribalism that goes on. Some people will not support Kickstarter, only Indiegogo, and vice versa. So the landscape is changing for crowdfunding, whether we like it or not. And I don't know if it's good or not, but I see a lot of underperforming campaigns right now.
I do too, and that's why I'm really interested. I'd like to follow up with Kyler here in a month and see how this Zoop campaign did. Kyler, so this is an anthology, essentially, what you put together here, yes?
Yes.
And how many artists is it? Are you writing all the stories? Tell me a little bit about the breakdown of it.
No, it's I just opened submissions, and so we have 20 stories, and some of them are, I think we're at 21 now. Some of them are, I wrote and drew one of them myself, but some of them are just one person wrote and drew it. Some are, with a traditional writer and artist, letterer. But overall, I think we probably have close to, I'm not sure, 20, probably close to 30 people altogether. But yeah, so they just got to tell their story that they wanted to tell and put it out. However, I just chose Zoop. I lost my train of thought there.
Well, you're on the right track, which, I'm curious as to why you chose Zoop. And I'm following this with great interest because it's like Phil said, everything I feel we're potentially in a period of great change here. And I almost switched off a Kickstarter for my last one, but, I got kind of a little bit of a following, not a great big one, but.
Well, if I could share some information with you guys real quick that I think you might find interesting. If no one else listening finds this interesting, I think you guys will. I'm a big data-driven person, a big numbers-driven person, and so I took 10 trade, like at least like a full volume of comics and 10 single issues, and I did the math. And for Kickstarter campaigns, Zoop campaigns, and crowdfunder campaigns, and just to see like who had the most backers on average, which one gained the most money on average, things like that. But so the one that is that Kickstarter consistently brings in the most money and has the most backers. But what was interesting to me is that Zoop campaigns have the highest per backer rate. So they have the highest amount. They have on average $66 per backer compared to Kickstarter's $41. Wow. So it's over $20 more on average that Zoop backers are giving than Kickstarter backers. But they're also, less than half the amount of Zoop backers.
And
So
can I ask you, how many pages is this book, and what's the price point? Let's say the lowest price point.
Mine, well, we just missed out just about 2 hours ago. We missed out on the early bird campaign, but right now I think the final volume is $22, and it's going to come out to somewhere close to 200 pages.
Oh, it's very reasonable.
So
yeah,
yeah.
it's a deal.
And that's before shipping, and that's like I was talking Zoop before, and how Zoop has I don't control much of Zoop, so they control the shipping rates, and so however much that ends up being, that's not on me. That's what Zoop decides, because I have to tell them how much each reward weighs, and they have a calculator that calculates all that for them. So my point was, I don't have any access to that, but yeah, right now $22 is the where you can get the book, or you can go for $40, and like we have other rewards that are part of it. I'm selling all of our previous books. I have different bundles. For $40, you can get a handwritten recipe card with the thing from the book, and so just lots of different variations on there, like most people have. I have an ad that I'll have in the back of the book for $100. Anyway, so people can go on there and find out all that themselves, but yeah, so I felt like that was the best thing after I talked to my printer and found out how much they were going to charge, and because I know printing rates have also gone up, and that's in flux right now, and so this just seemed like the best, the happy medium where I can get the most for my money while also making sure I'm not overcharging people.
It sounds like a great arrangement. Go ahead, Phil.
I'm sorry, I meant to bring up before too, another issue I think that's arising with crowdfunding is, because our print runs are low, for one thing, we're paying top dollar per book printing, but also, we have to charge $10 to $15 for a book that if it was on a comic shelf would be $5.
Yeah.
And then you're charging shipping on top of that. And with shipping costs being crazy, you're spending $8 to $10 on shipping. So that one book is coming out to $20, $25 in some cases. And when the economy's tough, a lot of people are saying, well, I can buy 4 books for that in a comic store of well-known books that I trust, as opposed to this schmo Phil and his book that I never heard of. So you're kind of fighting that, we're not selling our book. We're selling trust in our book.
Exactly.
Eric,
please chime in. And also tell us what your price point is and how many pages.
Oh boy. So my trade paperback is 120 pages. If people get that, it's all in color, and my prices are in Canadian. So it's, like $22 American is about 30 Canadian, and I'm charging 35 Canadian for my book. All my costs are significantly higher in Canada than for people living in the States.
Shipping in the United States is ridiculous for you.
Actually, shipping from Canada to the States is less expensive than if I wanted to ship to my next door neighbor. And I'm not even kidding.
Wow,
shipping is so
crazy.
awful in Canada. I was on I was talking with a few other indie creators, and one from Canada just so happened to tell me to get a shipping business account, and I end up saving like 30%, which is like, I'm going to jump on that immediately. But there's that. I try to make all my printing local from the province of Canada that I'm from, because I like the idea of supporting small businesses, but it's gotten so absurd that I just spent several grand on printing my trade paperback, and it came out really nice. It looks like the same quality you'd see Marvel or DC with, but it cost me way too much. I think I'm going to maybe start getting things in the States and shipped here, because I heard that it's less expensive to do that. But one thing I like to mention is that what I do, Phil, to make it seem like it's worth a little more paying for the shipping and all this stuff like that, is I actually draw a sketch on the inside.
Oh,
so
that's
like during
great. That's a great
during
idea.
the backer report, and I do it for all my books. Like some people are like, yeah, we'll see you do it if you have 1,000 books. Well, I just did a convention last weekend where I did I sold about 100 books, and I had to do 100 sketches, and I've been doing this for years. So I still like to make them look nice. I'm not going to make them like little pencil scratches. Like I make them look, cool. I put about like a good 1.5 to 2 minutes per sketch, and it comes out looking pretty nice. And I do it in every single book. So that way it's unique, and you get to choose the character. Like you just pick a character. It has to be from my comic, but you pick one that you think looks cool, and I sketch it out for you. So this way it's like, that's like it. Yours.
And that's great, because you save money on, because stretch goals cost money too. They cost money, and that's another reason why we have to put that cost into the book. But when you can do something like that, someone can walk away with original art from you, and it took your time, of course, and you pay for supplies, but at least you're not putting up that money right there for for that other stretch goal. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. So, guys, we are just about to our time. Let's go around the room one more time. We're going to do a call to action. Phil, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about Tragedy and who is the customer that will love this book?
All right, so the quick Netflix pitch is if you took Kill Bill, Big Trouble in Little China, and Boondock Saints and you mixed it together and then added more, that's what you have. She's an Irish assassin in New York, living a life that she doesn't want. Her life was taken from her. She's got an adoptive father that's a sociopath, and she hates him but wants and needs his love and respect. How many of us have been in that relationship? And the more she seeks it out, the more she hates herself. While she's fighting rival mafia, other assassins, metahumans, vengeful cyborgs, there's Chinese mysticism, there's immortals, and it all makes sense. Chuck Dixon, Peter David, and Howard Mackey said it was a well-written book.
Oh, wow.
Which makes me just ecstatic. So this book is the 5th chapter, and it's the culmination, the climactic culmination of the first story arc. But I write in a way like life isn't linear. So you've already been introduced to new villains that are going to be spreading out through the book, because this is an ongoing series. I have 26 issues written. And then there's Breath of the Dragon, who is an adversary of hers, but not necessarily a villain. And he's got a parallel story that's going on. And he has an ability that's never been used before. I dare you to find it prior to my comic. And I'll give you one comic free. And I'm not in Western comics because I don't read manga. I don't know if it's ever been done in manga, but in Western comics, if you find that power, I will give you one free comic of choice. I don't care if it's Bill Sienkiewicz cover or Will Spatasio cover.
Phil, it looks terrific. I follow your work, and I wish you the best of luck with Tragedy.
Thank
It looks
you.
great, man. You betcha. Kyler, chime in. So tell us a little bit about who will love Comics from the Kitchen.
Comics from the Kitchen is for anybody who likes to cook, or if you know someone in your life who likes to cook, this is for you. It's, like I said, it's good recipes, but the recipes mean a lot more once you've read the stories that go with them and seen where they come from and the people who've made them. And especially it's going to be for fans of autobio comics, because probably at least half the stories in here are direct autobiographical comics. And so if you're a fan of those, like of Blankets, of Honor Girl, of I can't think of any more autobio comics.
Blankets.
I said Blankets.
Oh, did you? Okay.
No, that's one of my favorite comics. But the one I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Autobio comics, you'll love it. If you love it, if you like to cook, you like food. We all like food, so buy it and read about food.
Man, I got to tell you, I think you got a great concept here, Kyler. It's I talked to a lot of creators, and you're my first. It's original. I'm going to give you that one.
Appreciate it.
And I also like what you said about has an emotional component. I like stories that have an emotional component. So, Eric, let's jump over to you, man. Tell us what type of customer will love Blythe, which is over on Kickstarter right now.
So, like my artwork looks like an anime. I say anime and not manga because it's all in color, and it's written the way a Western comic would be written. Like, for real, my comic is really out there. The only thing I can think of is there's an anime, for any of you anime watchers out there, called Toradora, and the way that they do emotional complexity is definitely my focus. I know, like, my whole thing saying it's 24 hours, first day of school, makes you think it might be like slice of life, but it's not whatsoever. It's very narrative driven. So, like, if you like emotional conflict, a bit of comedy and some drama, all focused around young adults, this is probably for you.
All right. It looks great, man. Like I say,
quick?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've been looking at Blythe while the show's been going on, and it's a beautifully illustrated book. The colors pop. It's a really pretty book, and I have to say kudos to you, Eric. You did a beautiful job. It looks fantastic, and Kyler's book is so unique and interesting in a world where we have so many regurgitated derivative stuff. I just wanted to say I hope people really come out and support you guys hard, because you earned it, you deserve it, and they look fantastic.
Oh, back at you, Phil. Thank you so much.
Man, what a great thing to say. And that's a perfect place to close the show. In closing, I would just say, first of all, to my guests, it was really an honor to meet you guys. And I legitimately wish you the best of luck with these projects. They're three of the best projects probably available on crowdfunding right now with totally original concepts. And it's definitely a product that I would even enjoy myself. So thanks for coming on the show, guys. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Yeah, it's really a tribute. And, to the viewers, hey, thanks for tuning in. This has been an episode of the Creative Cranium. I hope we all learned a little bit. I know I did. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
See ya.